The concept of fusion was talked about within the Dragon Ball community for the Tournament of Power ever since the Universe Survival Arc's inception, but never once had anyone within the fandom made the assumption that fusion would be returning in the form of the Universe 6 Saiyans and having Kale and Caulifla combine their powers, and having, based on the recent provisional spoilers, that is exactly what we're setting ourselves up for. And just for a reminder, if you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to punch that subscribe button and enable all notifications. That way you guys can be notified whenever a Dragon Ball video is posted onto this channel in connection to news, information, updates, and spoilers. Hashtag Dragon Ball Squad to be up to date with all latest involving Dragon Ball. Now, Emish, welcome back onto the channel, as the subject of Dragon Ball Super episode 115 spoilers is going to be the main focus here today, as we came to the shocking realization that we're going to potentially see the fusion of Kale and Caulifla in the form of Kefura. Now, I wanted to get your thoughts on this because this was such an unexpected occurrence, because we understand, based on the upcoming episode for Super, episode 113, that Goku's going to showcase Super Saiyan 3, and he is going to be more involved with both Kale and Caulifla in, fighting them, and potentially even showing them what Super Saiyan 3 is, and possibly even, going as far as to show them now what fusion is. Now, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, if you believe that this is going to be something to where it's illogical, or maybe it makes sense that potentially the new super fighter actually ends up being Kefura. And the idea that a few weeks ago, actually, we spoke about this, and the idea that we all speculated that the new super warrior was either going to be a new fighter, or perhaps the Universe 3 robots having to combine their bodies and creating some sort of like a Megazord. And now, as the evidence points to what's happening now, the new Super Warrior actually might be Kefura. So what are your thoughts on this concept of them fusing? Because again, the title and the description is provisional, but it alludes to the idea that come November 12th, we are going to see fusion from both Kale and Caulifla. So what's your thoughts on that? Do you agree or disagree with that? Because for me, I'm not so sure if I agree with this, because it all depends on the execution and the utilization, and quite frankly, how strong they're going to be. Like, does this put them relative, and I hate to say this, but to Super Saiyan Blue, which I doubt, or any other fighter that's in the tournament so far that gives them a run for their money? Obviously, I don't think that Kefura is going to be stronger than Jiren, or perhaps maybe Ultra Instinct Goku, but seeing that concept come about now, what's your take on Kefura, and just essentially, what are your thoughts on these spoilers, and just, do you agree or disagree with this concept of them having to combine powers?
Well, first of all, Alex, I'm so excited about this. Like, I'm so happy that this is finally happening. I think, it's finally happening. Fusion in the tournament, the one thing that we wanted.
Oh no.
No, the one thing we all wanted as a fan base to finally happen.
Oh no, I mean, we wanted fusion. They gave us fusion, but it wasn't who we thought it would.
And who better than Kale and Caulifla? No, but anyway, all kidding aside, like, realistically, there's no denying that. You can't deny, as a fan base, it is exciting news. Like, it's something you look forward to seeing, right? Was it something that you expected? Absolutely not. I think the way they portrayed Kale and Caulifla, it seemed like they were going to improve upon them as singular characters, as singular beings. Even 112 does the same thing. Caulifla references that she's positive now that she can become much stronger after seeing the fight with Goku and Jiren. And Kale, we know by default, because she's based on Broly, we know over time she's going to continue to get powerful. What really hurts about the thing that sucks about this idea is that the thing we saw in the Merged Monster arc of Vegito, that was like the last straw for people who were looking forward to see any kind of fusion going forward.
Or had faith in fusion,
yeah, exactly. I think, in my opinion, the reason they nerfed Vegito was to definitively tell us that, listen, going forward, don't expect for fusion characters to be like a major impact, to leave a major impact to the tournament. Long story short, like I said, I did a video talking about it as well on my channel. You guys can check it out. It's long story short, the only way I see this being any kind of viable, and the way they market it as a new warrior joins the fray amongst the Tournament of Power climax arc, we know there's 23 minutes at the time of this recording. At the time of 115, I imagine there's going to be 20 minutes or less.
Right.
With that, the only way they could like excuse this concept and make it feel like it matters is if the fusion lasts for the entirety of the tournament, or the entirety of how long they decide to stay, until they get wrung out. Because otherwise, there's no real reason for them to fuse. We know what happens after they defuse. They're going to be weakened. They're going to be tired. They're going to have to go run and hide again. And at that point, it's just a complete waste. However, I will say that if they want to market this character as a new warrior joins the fray, if they want to sell an action figure, right, or some kind of toy,
which essentially that
right,
might be the case,
which is essentially them, right, then to me personally, even though it might not make sense to you guys, that, well, Emish, how come the tower fusion only lasts 5 minutes and blah blah blah. I know, I don't work for these guys. You gotta ask them. Ask Toshia what they're doing. What it comes down to is the only logical explanation is to make the fusion last, which in my opinion, I don't agree with it. But if that's how you want to portray the concept of like Wakabasek, quote unquote, Caulifla, those two are the secret weapon for Universe 6's survival. If that's what you mean by showcasing fusion, by them being the secret weapon, even though in my opinion, I think potential-wise alone, they have so much potential to improve.
Oh, of course,
as characters and strength. It's insane. It's insane. So, and the fact that we saw Kale go up against a Super Saiyan Blue Goku, right, in her enraged state. Like, what I mean enraged, I don't mean berserk. I mean like she was batshit crazy. She had no control.
Yeah.
She casually walked through a Kamehameha wave. She casually grabbed his face and said, "Listen, you ain't shit." She had to toss him aside because she had to release some of her power. This is standard Broly stuff. So now we have Kale controlling that power, even her berserker state to some degree. But even if that power is not enough to fight Goku as a Super Saiyan 3, or let's say even after Super Saiyan 3 he does power up to Super Saiyan Blue, let's just theoretically say, right? Because there would be no reason for Kale to have a hard time as a berserker state Saiyan against a Super Saiyan 3 Goku when she literally just fought Super Saiyan Blue not too long ago.
Yeah.
But if the idea that Kale is weaker because they allowed her to control that power, if that's the idea that they're trying to portray, then they were better off potentially just bringing her out the way Jiren should have done to begin with. If that's the case, in my opinion.
This new power is going to be very interesting, because what I want to see is how this is going to play off, because like what I think is going to happen is I think that Goku's going to dominate in Super Saiyan 3. It's a little weird because, as you just said, how is it that Goku probably does that is unknown, because we saw what Kale did to Super Saiyan Blue, but here we have a very tired Goku who manages to somehow tap into a form that drains even more stamina than what the previous forms do, which again doesn't make sense. But what I'm guessing here happens is the idea that Goku does to them what he did to Goten and Trunks in teaching them the Metamarise fusion. How that's going to happen, I don't know. Goku's an idiot, I mean, for doing that, because again, you're assisting another opposing universe that is going to pose a huge threat going into this, because if, in fact, they do fuse, and we have this new super warrior by the name of Kefura, it's safe to assume that at that given point, Universe 2 and Universe 3, as already they are obsolete, they're going to be completely obsolete after that, because there is nothing or there is nobody that they can present that could rival, let alone Goku, Jiren, Toppo, etc. But now we have Kefura as well. This obviously gives Universe 6 a huge chance of winning, especially now with Hit having to be out, Cabba's out, and all that's left are the Namekians and the Saiyans. And based on history alone, man, you know, Dragon Ball Z centered itself around the Namekians and the Saiyans, and we know about their potential, more so for the Saiyans than the Namekians. And what's weird is, in my videos, I've been seeing lots of people talk about the Nameks are gonna fuse, the Nameks are gonna fuse, the Nameks are gonna fuse, and
no reason.
to all of those to all those questions, I would say you're wrong, they're not. But here, it's like now we have an actual fusion, but it's not with the Namekians, it's with the Saiyans, something that I really did not believe was going to happen, because off camera, we spoke about how me and you thought that, you know, it might come down to Kale being the sole survivor with her potential, with her infinite growth. Same thing with Caulifla, perhaps, maybe if they want to switch it up, if she ends up being the last one remaining for Universe number 6. We saw how she was able to adapt and grow, and I think that now, and ironically enough, we talked about this way back in, I think around May or June, we told everybody to disconnect their brains from this tournament, because there are going to be so many eliminations that don't make sense, so many transformations and things happening that wouldn't make sense. Let me ask you something. Do you think this makes sense from a plot point to where obviously we know that Jiren, as of right now, is the strongest guy. He is the pinnacle. And next up to that is Goku, but we don't know how Goku's going to function when going up against him again. It's safe to assume that they are going to have a rematch, right? That's inevitable. But do you think it's logical based on plot alone that this happens? And let's say, you know, this does occur to where they fuse and here comes the new Super Warrior. How relevant are they going to be in this tournament in terms of like keeping up or giving our current fighters, you know, a run for their money? I mean, we saw what they did as individuals, but now, you know, as a combined power, as a fusion, how like where do you see them progressing in the tournament? Like, do you ultimately see them defusing, or do you see somebody like Jiren ringing out that fusion?
Like I said, what it comes down to ultimately is whether or not, let's just look at the end goal. It's going to happen more or less. Let's accept it, right? So now that's out the way. What it comes down to is this fusion going to last? If it's not going to last, then you're literally forcing Universe 6 to get erased at this point. There's, I mean, and just the thought of the fusion not lasting long enough, and then to think about them being erased before Universe 2 or 3, that I think is interesting. Yes, it does shake things up, but nah, like I said, man, these are people who you would want to market and showcase to some degree. Right. The thing is now, I would imagine that they're gonna find some way to make this fusion last. Despite fusion never being, and I said this so many times when we talk about fusion, never ever has fusion been the deciding factor. Nope. Never has it left any kind of impact. Never has it influenced the direction of an arc, and it never got a major kill other than a movie.
Yeah,
which
we're not counting the Janemba fight.
But that's the thing now. By introducing a potential fusion yet again, whether it's Potara, maybe they know about the Metamoris fusion already. Who knows? Whatever. They're gonna give us some kind of explanation, right? To think about Goku, right? Yeah, to think about Goku literally having the time and like to show them, oh, why don't you guys come at me together? Oh, we are. No, I mean together. Like, why don't you fuse? What's that? Teach us how to do that. And then they fuse, and then he shows them how to fuse. That's bullshit. That's where I have to be like, all right, well, the fans, hopefully, whether they agree or not, that's too much now, because now, just stop. And then but I would at least hope that maybe they know about the fusion already. Whether it's Potara, whether it's Metamoris, whatever the case may be, ultimately what it comes down to is, will it last? That's one. Two, will they do the same thing they did in the Buu arc, right? With, they showed Goten and Trunks Super Saiyan 3 one time. And then as they Gotenks, when they fused together, he was jerking Piccolo off, basically, you know, giving Piccolo a heart attack. And then he was like, well, ta-da. Then he just starts powering up to Super Saiyan 3. The next thing
no,
he's like, yeah,
I see what you're alluding at. I see what you're alluding at.
It's the same exact concept. And we know Dragon Ball tends to take, you know, things that they've used before.
Oh my god, imagine that. And not only do they fuse as a singular fighter, but the same thing like Gotenks.
Think about it. They would have enough power. Hold on. They would have enough power. And look at it this way.
Oh, no, they would, yeah.
Video. And I mentioned this in my spoiler video. Based on potential alone, Kale and Caulifla are being marketed based on potential alone the same way Goten and Trunks were in the Buu arc. They were pushed so hard to the point that, so much so that they fused, and on top of that, they took it a step further by utilizing their potential alone and went Super Saiyan 3, and then they came out and fought Buu. Now the thing is here, even if they fuse and then go Super Saiyan 3, that'd be ridiculous, because at this point in time, Goku's already went to Super Saiyan Blue, right? He's went to Super Saiyan God. Why go Super Saiyan 3, right? When we know Super Saiyan God is stronger than that and more conservative of stamina.
Of course.
Oh, I get it. It's a plot point. They want to showcase these two fighters, Super Saiyan 3, one time, and then rehash the same concept they did with transform.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I mean, listen,
so
at the end of the day, from a company standpoint, it sells toys. I get it. Yep. It's all about making money, and you guys can't knock that. I mean, at the end of the day, in the future, we are going to get Dokkan cards, Xenoverse content, Fighters content for stuff like Kefura and whatnot, etc. They're introducing a lot, because from what I'm looking at it towards, it's definitely a selling point for content, like, you know, merchandise and whatnot, toys, DLC, whatever, which, I mean, you can't really complain on that, but in the show itself, it just goes without showing. It's like, okay, you're just gonna start pulling transformations and now fusions out of the blue. And weirdly enough, and I remember this, back in February, me and you did a video on my channel talking about why we're not going to see Vegito or Gogeta in this tournament. And as the months progressed, it became evident as to why, because this is primarily a fight for Goku as to why he asked for this. Vegeta obviously never wanted to fuse with Goku, never wants to. But now, months later, we come to the understanding that there is going to be a fusion, but it's going to be with a different pairing of Saiyans, which is going to be Kale and Caulifla. A lot of us originally assumed back in August, I think it was, that Brienne was going to do the same. And in fact,
based on spoilers. Based on spoilers.
And that turned out to be, I think it was misinterpreted, but that never happened. So now we have this. Let me ask you, how strong, just realistically looking at their potential, their power, what they could do, and what they already have done, how strong do you think this power would be, or at least this fusion? Because I think it's not going to be anything involving an item, for example, Potara's, whatever. I think it's going to be the finger fusion, the Minamari's fusion. But with that being said, taking what we know from Dragon Ball Z, 30-minute timer, whatever, how strong do you think they would be? Because it's unfair to compare Vegito to them, because Vegito emitted so much power that the fusion broke. Like, they defused quicker than they originally thought they would. Here, they're not Super Saiyan Blues, they're not on that kind of tier, but they're still going to be pretty strong. How strong do you see them being here? And as we saw what Kale did to Super Saiyan Blue Goku, do you see the same thing occurring, to where if it's Vegeta or Goku in Super Saiyan Blue, do you see this fusion trucking them?
That's where the problem lies, I think, and maybe if anything, I think that's probably why they weaken Kale by allowing her to control her power. Listen, at the end of the day, she has access to that power, right? But at the end of the day, she's still Kale. She's not the same batshit crazy girl that we saw stomping Goku around. That's not her anymore. With that in mind, it's because of that it might have weakened her in terms of overall power output and growth, right? So with that, what it comes down to is we know that sometimes the fusion predominantly takes on the characteristics of the more dominant figure of the fusion, right? The case is different for Goku and Vegeta because they have two different fusions. We've seen two different fusions, Gogeta and Vegito. Ultimately, though, they're both somewhat the same to some degree in terms of personality, right? Now, with Kale and Caulifla, it's funny because we did a video yesterday. We couldn't drop it now because of the news we got today. And I mentioned how she reminds me of Gotenks based on her, like, I guess attitude, the way she shows off. The way she likes to big herself up, right? Like, talk big about herself. It's exactly like the first time we saw Gotenks when he was first born, and Piccolo was like, okay, now let's practice the fusion while you're a Super Saiyan. Gotenks was like, no, it's no need. I'm gonna go take care of Boo right now. And then he flies off and does his own thing. And this is where it comes to, you know, immaturity and control. Yes, the potential is there, but you're just not ready for it. So I think the big question here is are they ready? And another thing to consider is the idea of them getting the fusion down at the very first try. If Goku would just show it to them, that they get it down packed the very first try. That's another thing to consider. Are we going to see a fat, Kafla, whatever her name is, Karifla, whatever? Are we going to see a skinny, dying, anorexic? Yeah, like, you know, exactly. So these are things to consider. Also, we know Gotenks did last for the 30 minutes.
He did. Yeah. So it's safe to assume that they might too, because they're not Super Saiyan Blues.
Last.
They're not
I would imagine.
Through,
yeah, exactly. I would imagine because of this, they will last. So what it comes down to is the ultimate question: is it gonna last? Right? In terms of strength, we saw Kale go up against Blue Goku. That's the problem. That's where the problem lies. I don't know. It's weird. But then again, they could justify it by saying, well, that was an enraged Kale. That was Broly-esque Kale. This is not the same Kale you had in that episode. For example, like, this is not the Gohan in the tournament right now is not the same Gohan who fought Goku in that episode.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what it really comes down to. And hopefully, I hope it lasts. So that way, time she's going to continue to get powerful. What really hurts about, you know, the thing that sucks about this idea is that the thing we saw in the Emergence Monster of Vegito, that was like the last straw for people who were looking forward to see any kind of fusion going forward.
Or had faith in fusion,
yeah, exactly. I think, in my opinion, the reason they nerfed Vegito was to definitively tell us that, listen, going forward, don't expect for fusion characters to be like a major impact, to leave a major impact to the tournament. Long story short, like I said, I did a video talking about it as well on my channel. You guys can check it out. It's long story short, the only way I see this being any kind of viable and the way they market it as a new warrior joins the fray amongst the Tournament of Power climax arc, we know there's 23 minutes at the time of this recording. At the time of 1:15, I imagine there's going to be 20 minutes or less.
Right.
With that, the only way they could like excuse this concept and make it feel like it matters is if the fusion lasts for the entirety of the tournament or the entirety of how long they decide to stay, you know, until they get wrung out. Because otherwise, there's no real reason for them to fuse. We know what happens after they defuse. They're going to be weakened. They're going to be tired. They're going to have to go run and hide again. And at that point, it's just a complete waste. However, I will say that if they want to market this character as a new warrior joins the fray, if they want to sell an action figure, right, or some kind of toy,
which essentially that
right,
might be the case,
which is
too.
essentially them, right, then to me personally, even though it might not make sense to you guys, that, well, Emish, how come the tower fusion only lasts 5 minutes and blah blah blah. I know, I don't work for these guys. You gotta ask them. Ask Toshia what they're doing. What it comes down to is the only logical explanation is to make the fusion last, which in my opinion, I don't agree with it. But if that's how you want to portray the concept of like Wakabasek, quote unquote, Caulifla, those two are the secret weapon for Universe 6's survival.